John says he's got two questions. Yes, you may ask two questions, John. His current situation is that I'm not able to integrate the central insight of my non-dual teachings into my life, so I continue to suffer. So just based off this first statement, it already tells me that you're still doing things in order to end your suffering. So the thing we have to understand, if not now, there'll have to be a point where you understand this. Maybe you already do, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but based on that sentence, it's implicit in that sentence, is the fact that you are trying to integrate the non-dual teaching so that you don't suffer. Because if you weren't doing it to end your suffering, you wouldn't have added, so I continue to suffer. And one thing we have to know is that every single thing that we do to end our suffering is pretty much primarily there to reveal to us all the possibilities of things that we could possibly do that will not end our suffering. Nothing can end our suffering. And when we awaken to that, then we're open and receptive to the truth. So the paradox is the fact that we think there are things we can do to end our suffering, then we realize there isn't, and when we realize there isn't, we're then open to actually understanding the truth. And the truth, the suffering is a byproduct of understanding the truth. So we want devotion to the truth and not to have the desire to remove suffering. Desire to remove suffering will be there for lifetimes. It's only when finally we stop trying to remove our suffering and take a different approach, which is the approach to devotion to truth, devotion to God, or interest in the truth. And that is what puts us in the best position possible. I haven't finished the rest of what you said yet. My desired situation is that I will be able to live the teaching and thrive despite the ups and downs of everyday living. Just checking if my mic's on again. Good thing it is. You did address this briefly in a recent video, but repetition from another angle with different words, or maybe just plain repetition would help. My desired situation is I'll be able to live the teaching despite ups and downs. Therefore, my question is, how do I do that most effectively? You do that, what I said first. That's how you do it most effectively. You stop trying to remove your suffering. You give up trying to live the teaching despite ups and downs. You stop caring about the ups and downs. You stop balancing your teaching on whether it's embodied or integrated. Just know within yourself you're either happy or suffering, and you just want happiness. It's not about removing suffering. Happiness is for its own sake, because we could always argue the ultimate goal is always happiness. So happiness is the truth. So try and convert yourself from the seeker to the adventurer. That's the main thing. I would prioritize that, seeker to adventurer. There's no greater pain than filming the Q&A with the microphone off. So I'm going to go through the Q&A again. Jeez Louise. Okay, Asta. Let's go. Right, so Asta, what I was saying, before I realised the mic wasn't on, Asta says, how and from what age would you introduce this teaching to children? First of all, hello Asta, good to speak to you. I wouldn't necessarily recommend introducing it to them like someone would in school. Hey, now it's math time, we're going to learn maths, not like that, but I would be the love you want them to feel. And that will be enough. And then when they are ready to ask you, hey mum, what is this about? Hey mum, why did you do this instead of that? Hey mum, and you give them worthy inquiry. So you want to wait for the worthy inquiry. I don't have kids myself, but my ex had a child, and I'm friends with various parents, and if there's one thing I know, children are here with their own agenda. They're here with their own agenda, and that agenda will be given to them regardless. So the best we can do is to be the embodiment of the teaching and give them worthy inquiry when they inquire, because that is going to be the best approach. They need example, right? So if they have example, arguably, they don't even need you to talk about it. You see? So you don't necessarily have to introduce it to them. I would just embody the teaching, be the love you want them to feel, and they will inevitably ask you, why are you so peaceful, Mum? What drugs have you been taking to be this calm? That would be the best approach. And then you tell them, well, my child, this wasn't through drugs, actually. So, you get the sentiment, embody it. That will be enough for them, and respond with worthy inquiry. Thank you for the question, Esther. It's a great question. Hey, babe. I'm just finishing this video, okay? I love you. Come give me a kiss. The next question is, my current situation and challenge is that I'm severely affected by poor health, mainly in the form of chronic fatigue. My desired situation is that I might be excited by life, have lots of energy to live the life and enjoy joy and creativity. Therefore, my question is this at all possible or even necessary? It is absolutely possible. A good friend of mine who was one of the first kind of one-to-one clients that I had working since I set everything up. One of the biggest issues for him was chronic fatigue, and he's like a semi-pro cyclist and loves riding. And if he's watching, hey Mads, how you doing, brother? He was kind of handicapped in a way because of the energy and his just kind of like, it's just baseline energy to even train and ride. And all I can say is that the symptoms aren't the real issue. The symptoms aren't the problem. The problem is that we try to resolve the symptoms. I am tired, so I'll try and do things to be more excited. Or we think that we should only do things if we're excited, or if there's passion, or if there's some type of desire. Not desire, but like motivation. The real thing is that you are... The reason that question number 2 is related to question number 1. You're still doing things to try and remove your suffering, which implies you are aggravating the chronic fatigue. The chronic fatigue is aggravated by resistance. It is, in fact, in most cases, if not all of them, a psychosomatic experience of resistance creating a lack of energy for you to actually activate what you're doing. This might not be the case all the time, but for the most part, most of the people that I've spoken to who have gone through this, it is always the same. Your problem is that you resist the symptoms. You want to get rid of the symptoms because you want to be having a different experience, which relates exactly back to the reason why it's probably there. Resisting experience, trying to find a new and better experience, and therefore perpetuating the resistance. So I would suggest the first approach. The answer to the first question would be the same. I'm sure that you must have heard me by now talk about the adventurer versus the seeker. I would definitely go back to that. And if you need me to send you the links to the videos, I'll add them to you as well, so you can go directly to that understanding. Thank you for the questions, John. Sam Young. My current situation is that I just truly internalized on my own mortality for the first time. I truly internalized my own mortality for the first time. Life suddenly feels so fragile, and all I can see in every choice I make is the flurry of potential consequences down the line. You're really testing my English here, Sam. I'm very dyslexic. I was surprised I just read that without. Well, I suppose I just read it at all. It's hard to see motivation and purpose as suddenly the small and big picture are overshadowed by the fact that everything ends the same way. My desired situation is to see my mortality as a gift instead of fearing it. The burden I feel mentally is strong, and I want to see life's impermanence as a reason to seek meaning every single day instead of something that washes it away. Yeah. I want to see life's impermanence as a reason to seek meaning. I wouldn't just use it as a reason to seek meaning. I would see as thank fuck that there's impermanence. Honestly, let me just share this with you now. After realizing that I can't die, only then for some reason did I realize how valuable impermanence is. The value of impermanence is like, it's like, imagine you never went to sleep. Like, imagine you never slept. There was just constant experience, constant, like, there's no intervals. Oh my gosh, trust me, you wouldn't want that. You would just not want that. Like just to put it, you wouldn't want to even live forever. Like, you wouldn't want to live. Imagine this body you're experiencing lived forever. You trust me, you would not want that. You would, whether it was in 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, or 1,000,000 years. Could you imagine living the same life on the same planet for like 1,000,000,000 years? Like, actually process it. Unless you were going to die, well, you've got to live forever. And just process what that means if you were to live forever, like as the same body mind, right? We do live forever in terms of things, but it's not the same experience, right? There's intervals, there's transitions, there's other experiences that are so different that it's like, you know, like in the day, if we didn't sleep, we would go insane. It's like that. If in the same way, we have to die. The body mind has to die, but it's not the scary event that you think it is. You see, and I say that from experience. I don't want to go into too much detail on that now, but it's not necessarily it definitely can be. I can't lie on that. It definitely can be if you don't recognize your true nature. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone, but I would highly recommend dying before you die, purely because when we don't know what we are when we die, and we lose the thing we think we are for the body mind, and we die and we lose the thing we think we are, that's what feels like death. So it's better to gradually unravel that. But it's not a difficult process. You know, I can take you through it, right? This is why I built this community, to help ease people through that process. It's not very hard. Just be gentle with it. But I strongly recommend realizing the alternative to the body dying is 1,000,000,000 times worse than how scary it might be to die to go through a process of death. Trust me. The implications of the alternative, you think about it like this: you're scared of dying. Presumably, you would then want to live forever, like as the same life without having to die, because otherwise, well, then you would want to die if you didn't want the alternative, right? So you either want one or the other. I would recommend just contemplating the implications of living forever for the same body mind is hell. Trust me, you would want to die. So yes, and when I say die, you would want to go through the process of death, just like in the same way that you want to go to sleep at night, you would want to have that process of death eventually. So I'm not going to go into too much philosophical stuff right now. I think that point will be enough for you based on what I know from what we spoke the other day in the call. And yeah, therefore, I didn't even get to your question, I don't think. Therefore, my question is, how do I define or let go of meaning in a way that is instead of burdening me and sets me free? I feel claustrophobic, trapped in this predicament, put here against my will, and only just realizing the amount of choices that I have to make. I want the burden and the expectations of what I feel like life should be like to lift. Well, I would recommend realizing you're right now, you're like a movie character in the movie that is actually the screen. Imagine there's a screen. The screen is consciousness. That's what you are. And right now you're like the screen, believing yourself to be the movie character and suffering the content of the movie character, all the burdens, all the choices, all the things that you've got to do. And if you don't make the right ones, then God forbid you're going to have to do something terrible. That's what you're living in right now. You're not that. You're the screen. You are free from everything. So you technically, as the screen, you can do whatever you like. Obviously, I say that provisionally. I'm speaking to an intelligent human being here, not an idiot. So I'm assuming you're not going to go and do silly things. But you see what I mean? You're the screen. You're not. You're mistaking yourself for something else. And when you mistake who you are for something temporary, limited, and finite, well, now you've got a short period of time to figure things out until you die and then don't exist anymore. So that's why things are pressuring your fear of death, your fear of your claustrophobia and lack of meaning. You're bestowing a lot of weight on yourself. This will be relieved when you realize you're the screen. So without going into too much detail here, I would prioritize the screen. Prioritize recognizing yourself as the screen. Recognize yourself as pure awareness, pure being, infinite being, and solve that. Solving all the little things like meaning and making better choices. These are things that will be resolved as a result of understanding who you are on an absolute level, full 100% conviction. Just make that the priority, that will solve every other problem. The reason those problems are there is because of that one thing. You believe yourself to be temporary. You believe yourself to be limited to the brain, to the head, to the mind, to the body. That will always cause suffering, and then it'll always feel like a burden because you'll be suffering the consequences of the character in the movie. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Thank you for the question, Sam. Steve, how you doing, man? Yesterday you said something like, the knowing of your beingness is infinite. I get a slight forefeeling that this is true, but I always run into a wall when it comes to understanding infinite, someone that might feel like I know, like. Okay, and then I said, we did go through in the Q&A, then I said, did you check the Q&A? You said you rewatched it, but there was somehow some words that didn't stick. Okay. Well, I wish I knew what those words were so I don't use them again. Knowing of your beingness is infinite. So, infinite doesn't mean anything to do with an object. Infinite means transcendent of time and space. So, in your experience right now, you have everything perceivable is an object, meaning it has a start and an end. That's what we call a thought, something that starts and ends. It has a size and a shape. That's what we call an object. And it has a tangible quality that seems experientiable, like a feeling or a smell or anything like that. So something that is infinite doesn't have those things. That's it. Something infinite is just something that doesn't have any of those things. Doesn't start and end. Doesn't have a size or shape. Doesn't have a form or a color. Doesn't change. Doesn't come and go. Appear and disappear. It doesn't have any measurable quality. Now, awareness is simply infinite because it just has no measurable quality. You can't put it in a cup. You can't measure it with a measuring tape. Awareness is just simply aware of all experience. It doesn't have itself anything to experience, apart from the fact that we know it. But knowing it is not necessarily an actual experience, you see? That's what I mean by infinite, not finite, not limited to a size, a shape, a form, or a color, or a certain experience. Awareness isn't limited to any experience. And we know this because we know awareness irrespective of experience. So the fact that most people say, no, I only know I'm aware because I see an object. This is an illusory understanding. The reason being, if I said, I'm only aware because I see the laptop, or I see a thought, or I see a lamp, what I'm saying is, if that was true, then I shouldn't be aware that I am aware of that experience. If I really was only aware because I could see a lamp, then I wouldn't be metacognizant of the fact I see the lamp, but I'm aware that I see the laptop. I know that is an experience I'm having. It's metacognition. And what that means is that we can have the experience of awareness irrespective of the object. Because in order for me to say I am aware of the object, I have to know the object, but not just the object. I have to experience awareness inherent in that experience. I have to know awareness as a primary experience, then I understand that then I knew the object. So that proves awareness is autonomous. It means awareness is an experience we can have without using a thought, an image, a sensation, or a feeling. Basically, we don't use the body and the mind in order to know that we are aware. So therefore, awareness doesn't have a limit to access it. In other words, I don't need a key to open it. I don't need to undo the lock. I don't need to open the blinds to see it. I don't need to drive there to see it. I don't need to think about it to see it. It's just there. It's autonomous. That's what it means to be infinite. To not have any limited qualities, and to not need to go somewhere or do something to access it. It's autonomous and free. Hope that was helpful, Steve. Marilena, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Pleasure to meet you. I don't believe we've properly spoke. You're from Ivory Coast. No, you're from Romania, but at the moment you live in Ivory Coast. Amazing. Hope I didn't share too much details there for everyone. Hopefully I don't give you a postcode next time. My current situation is that I feel so tired of understanding the way life is, the way it is, why humans are not capable of creating a love and peaceful existence. Well, some of them are, arguably. But yes, I understand you. I'm tired of trying to understand the atrocities happening in this world and why some people choose to do it. My question is, how do I move from here? Because it is like I can't accept the evil in this world. Well, you have to see. It's like an antelope saying, I just can't understand why the lion tries to kill my family every day. How evil this lion is. It just wants to kill me. It wants to kill my family. I hate it, right? But the lion is just being a lion. It's nature. And the difference between a human and a lion is that the lion isn't murdering, right? The lion's not murdering things. It's doing it because that's naturally how it's how it eats. If the lion didn't, it's born literally to eat other animals. So you could also argue, why did God create another animal that kills another animal? But when we look at nature, it's actually filled with death. It's filled with gore. It's filled with. Have you ever seen a bear like mutilate God knows what? Like, bears are scary. What I'm trying to say is, like, nature has to evolve. Nature has a process of evolution, and human beings have a process of evolution that is also in line with nature. Now, humans doing evil things is not necessarily the same intention as a lion killing naturally. This is like a naturally unnatural thing. It's like when a human being becomes aware of what its decisions are, a lot of shit happens in that phase of consciousness, a lot of the mind. It's a lot of human beings will just do messed up stuff when they're in the process of cognizing their experience. Because whereas a lion's doing it to survive, humans are doing it for happiness. The lion does it because its survival depends on whether it eats or not. Humans do it because our survival, technically speaking, and this is what all human beings are fearing, unless they're like, living in a completely remote island and they haven't discovered like fire yet, is that they are doing things for psychological survival. And most humans, 99% of humans, are doing the evil stuff because it's a backwards, convoluted approach to happiness. We're all seeking happiness. Some people have a more convoluted approach to that based on their genes and conditioning, and also then the decisions they choose to make relative to that genes and conditioning. They take a very faulty approach, and that approach has a realm, and a lot of that realm is hatred, condemnment, shame, guilt, and judgment. And we go through that phase, might not have to necessarily go through it ourselves to the extent that other people go through it. We've all gone through shame, hatred, grief, condemnment, judgment, and things like that, but it doesn't make us kill people. But obviously, if we were them, we would have done it too. That's why we're not them. So we have to see from a greater perspective. There is a realm where hatred, shame, guilt, condemnment, judgment takes place. And something you have to recognize, Marilina, is that your incapacity or your judgment and shame and resentment and potentially hatred for evil is a part of the thing that causes the evil, you see? That's a big thing we have to wake up to. The realm where hatred, condemnment, shame, guilt, fear, and inevitably that sense of guilt, that's where it exists. So we have to, the only way that we can help further evolve and adapt this process of nature that's happening on Earth, we have to also transcend that level of hatred or condemnment or judgment. Because the people who are murdering and doing all these things, they're doing it in order to escape their guilt, fear, judgment, and ultimately to find happiness. That's the main thing to note. This is where compassion comes in. This is why Jesus was trying to teach this compassion, this level of forgiveness. It's not for the faint of heart, because it's transcendent of our individual needs, in a sense of it's transcendent of our individual identity. We have to transcend our own shame, guilt, hatred, so that we can transcend and forgive, even as far out as the crimes have been committed. The only reason I know this experientially. I'll share maybe the video to you if you want to. But I experienced as being have caused all the suffering that's ever existed. So I know what it feels like to have murdered and raped and did all sorts of crazy crimes because I thought I committed the entire thing, every single form of suffering. So I know the level of guilt and shame that stems around that vibration, and it has to be forgiven. Not just forgiven to the world, but forgiven from ourselves. We have to see our own innocence. We have to see our own absolute innocence. Unless we see our own innocence, we will never see the innocence in somebody else. You see? So we need to see our own innocence. If we are resenting the world and evil things, then we ourselves are resenting ourselves. We ourselves are resisting what we have done, and we need to fully embrace that and forgive that within ourselves. So I wouldn't recommend figuring out how to solve that in the world, how to resolve, how to kind of get past that from people in the world. Take that within yourself. Forgive everything you have ever done that you potentially think you could have done different. Allow that to have been what happened. Let that be what happened. Don't try to change it. Don't try to resist it. And I guarantee you'll have an easier time allowing the nature to take place in the world and being then for a beacon of love and forgiveness, so that you are an accurate representation of transcending that level. That would be the best way to go through that. You need to transcend that level of hatred and shame and that vibration, so that you can then be a pure embodiment of that love. It doesn't mean that you don't still find it unjust. It doesn't mean that you don't find it humane. That you need to have those qualities of both being able to transcend the suffering that is entailed by by seeing that, but also to still know in your heart that it's wrong. And this is the magic. Most people don't know how to see something as wrong as a belief, but also to not feel guilty. Most people, we need to evolve to a point where we can have true compassion. True compassion is not to allow bad things to happen. It's to understand and not suffer the consequences of the bad things that happen, while also taking a stand to know that it's unjust, whatever these things are, and to still serve in direction of greater truth. Most people, if you told them you were allowed to kill people, most people would just go and kill people. Most people don't kill people because they're not supposed to. Like, honestly, a large portion of the earth is operating like that. It's just society wouldn't want you to do it and you'd go to prison. Like, that is pretty much what a lot of people, and why a lot of people are not doing it. Now, if you apply that to a load of other things, now you realize this is why we need to transcend this level. This is such an important thing to see. We want to be able to know things are wrong, and even if we had the opportunity to do it, we wouldn't do it. I'm not suggesting, obviously, that you would kill people at all if we were allowed to, but I'm saying there are people who don't do it because of these rules. And they don't think they're supposed to. So we need to get to the point where we are activating our own wisdom. So that is what I'd recommend. Thank you for the question, Marilina. Anne Watkins, my current situation is that I've fallen out with my brother. My desired outcome is to be free of the anguish of his behavior. My challenge is letting the behavior go. Knowing it's all arising in consciousness, my question is, how do I let the anger towards him go with my understanding of being in the present moment? These terms, it's all just an arising in consciousness. They don't really work. You have to realize that you are blaming your brother. The anger isn't really the problem. The problem is you are blaming him. You are using blame in order to process the anger. So the anger's stirred up. Something's happened that's unjust. That's fine. We watch a movie, something unjust happens to the character. We still feel that frustration and anger. But we turn the film off and everything's perfectly fine and happy and we go about our day. That's an example of we should and can, and it doesn't matter if we do, feel frustration or anger if someone does something that isn't right, right? But if it is when you don't know how to process that feeling, you will use blame in order to process the feeling. And the paradox is the blame doesn't process the feeling. It just temporarily resolves it, which means that blame is a perpetual pain, basically. Blame is a perpetual pain. And you will continue to feel the pain of that blame for as long as you blame your brother. And you will continue to feel angry for as long as you blame your brother. You blame your brother because you are unable to forgive yourself. There are things in your life that you have done or haven't done that you feel blamed or guilty about. Because if you were to have completely forgiven yourself, you would see your own inherent innocence. And it is not possible to see your own inherent innocence and then to not see the innocence of another. Now, I'm not saying people can commit crimes and because I see them as innocent, they should be relieved of those crimes. Absolutely not. We need to take responsibility on that level of the things that we've done. We have to take responsibility for it. So I'm not saying that seeing the innocence of someone should stop us from that person from taking responsibility. It means that we have a deep understanding as to the innocence of life. The innocence of everything has to be seen. This is I could tell you a million different preliminary tiny little things that don't really hit the mark. The ultimatum, and this relates to the last question as well, you have to see the innocence of nature. You have to see the innocence of life. And that will just purify your perception. Your whole perception will be purified. You will see the innocence of all people, the innocence of nature, the innocence of all things. And that is ultimately pure, loving intelligence. So seek that pure, loving intelligence. See your own innocence, through seeing your own innocence. Everything you've done, everything you haven't done, fully forgive that. Because the way that you blame your brother tells me that you still feel like there is a reason to punish people. And punishing is from a level of understanding that means that there are people who are inherently wrong. It's like nature has somehow created something inherently wrong that deserves to be punished. And I know you know that's not true. You see, the idea of being punished is like is another thing that we need to transcend from. We need to take responsibility, but punishment is a convoluted way to find resolution. So I would suggest, see where you are not letting, what you are not letting go of, or what you are holding on within yourself, and forgive yourself. Hope that was helpful, Anne. Rich, my current situation is I'm not doing enough of the right things for long enough, as often enough as is necessary to awaken. Well, my first question would be, how do you know? What do you need to do? Like, what are the right things that you need to be doing for long enough and as often as enough as is necessary to awaken? There's a lot of assumptions there, Rich. You see, there's 4 assumptions. The first assumption is that there's things that are necessary. The first one is that you're not doing enough. The other one is that you need to do the right things, and the other one is that you need to do them for long enough. My desired situation is, or what I want to see, is that I see the nature of reality, and I have a firm shift in identity that is awakening, self-realizing, enlightenment, moksha. I want to be free from believing that I am this Richard character. My challenge is to be more committed, focused, determined to awaken. Therefore, my question is, if there isn't any separate person here, somewhere inside me, who is responsible for doing or not doing, what gives? The reason that you're not fully committed, or devoted, as I would call it, is because you still have some belief that something in the world can make you happy. That's it. You believe somehow there is something in the world that may give you happiness. You think, oh, there might be some practice that if I do for long enough, then I will find moksha. Or, oh, there's some practice. Maybe I haven't discovered it yet, or maybe I just haven't fully understood it, or maybe I've got to do... You believe that there is something left in the world of experience that you can do as an activity to make you happy. That is why you're not that interested in the truth. Because the truth means you would have to go beyond objective experience. But you still believe there's a possibility that there is something in objective experience to make you happy. So you're not going to be devoted. Imagine this. You've got a girlfriend, and let's just say you've got 2 girlfriends. The only reason you'd have 2 girlfriends is if you weren't really sure if you just wanted one of them. You see? Because if you absolutely knew that one of them was the right woman for you, and you didn't want it, and you just knew that, like, with absolute certainty, you wouldn't be dwindling between the 2. You see? This is why I've never agreed with polyamory. It's just the most ridiculous thing. Polyamory is just an excuse to be having multiple relationships until you find the right person. It's just nonsense to me, because I can guarantee you, or every polyamorous person is polyamorous because they're polyamorous until they meet the right person. Let me tell you that. I guarantee you, any polyamorous person that finds someone who they're absolutely smitten by, let me tell you, they're not going to be polyamorous much longer. So what I'm saying is, if you have 2 girlfriends, you're devoted to none. You see? So if you think happiness is potentially in the world with a couple of activities further for a little bit longer, and if I do them in the right way, facing the sun in the right direction with my, spine correct, then, but also there might be some happiness somewhere else in the place Saja talks about, not going into objective experience. You're going to be undevoted to both because your energy is dispersed. So basically, in a nutshell, Rich, you need to see right now, there is absolutely nothing, you process this for a moment, zilch, absolute, there's nothing you can do at all to find happiness in the world. Absolutely nothing, not a thought you can think, not a thing you can do. There's 0 thing you can possibly do in order to find happiness in the world. That is why you're not that interested, because you're still in between both worlds. You can't devote yourself to 2 wives. That would be the answer. I hope that's helpful for you, Rich. Thank you for the question, man. Tiago, to make this question, I have to define some concepts. Tiago, this might be the shortest question that you've ever asked me. I clicked see more and I was expecting to see like a entire page. On the contrary, man, this is only a couple of lines. I'm loving it. You've definitely taken on board the advice I give you. Okay, so to make the question, I have to find some context. There is only one infinite self, but when it localizes itself, it becomes limited by the finite mind through which is seeing itself. It doesn't become limited by the finite mind. It doesn't really limit itself. It's like saying, do you limit yourself when you watch a Netflix movie? Do you limit yourself when you read a book? Of course not. You've not really limited yourself. You've just decided to read a book out of your own freedom. You've got so much time, you thought, tell you what, I'm going to read a book. A book is read word for word, right? A book is read, the cat sat on the mat. These are individual words, and unless we read them individually, page by page, we don't know what's going on in the book. So life is like the same. It's not really a limitation, right? I'm not limited to one Netflix movie. Not that I watch Netflix movies. I'm really not. But I'm more of a Apple TV kind of guy right now. I can't, like, just because I'm watching Shrinking on Thursday nights, doesn't mean I'm not watching Silo on a Friday night, right? For my Apple TV fans out there. So you're not limited, really, right? That's what I want to point out. It doesn't really limit itself. I will call the I that has access to all infinite minds big I, and the I with limited information the small I. There is no I with limited information. Consciousness doesn't really have information. It's like saying, I will call the big ocean, the ocean. I'll call the ocean in the wave, the small ocean. I mean, the ocean's never in a wave. There's no wave there to even say that there's an ocean. This is something I notice that you keep doing, is you keep like creating so much distance between the mind and consciousness. You keep separating them quite drastically. And I'm not sure if that's doing a disservice to your understanding or not. So let's go to the next bit. I want to know if the only way the small I does/create something, the small I, the wave never creates a wave. The waves don't create waves. Waves don't even wave. There's no wave in order to make a wave. The water waves. The waves don't wave. In the same way, the small I doesn't do anything. There's no small I. It's like the tail doesn't wag. Tails have never wagged. Dogs wag the tail, right? It's the same as like... You see what I'm saying, right? I want to know if the only way the small I does or creates something is by receiving prompts or drops of information, thoughts, feelings, desires from the big I. Note, there is only one I, but clearly there is a part of the infinite I that has way more access, knowledge than the small I, even if the small I is enlightened. Well, the small I is never enlightened. So if you're considering that the small I could be enlightened, that tells me that you're making way too much a conceptual gap between awareness and the mind. There is no small I. There is no decisions that the small I does. The small I never does anything. There is no small I that does a single thing. There is consciousness, and there is consciousness experiencing individuality. Consciousness doesn't have information. The information is in the realm of the mind, the collective mind that we're in. We could say there's just like vibrations of mind. We don't need to go too much detail into that. But Tiago, you're making way too much of a distinction between the small I and the big I. There's no small and big I. There's one I. Neither of them have any distinguishable quality. And then in experience, there is appearances that seem to give information in experience. Like, imagine that you've got virtual reality headset on, and you're in the virtual reality world. When you're in the individual reality world, you never cease being the self that you already are. You put the headset on, you haven't just become a small I. You have access to the same information that you had before you put the headset on. Nothing has changed, right? It's not that it has more access to knowledge and understanding. You see, it's just in the moment when you're experiencing, you're not experiencing something else. If you're reading one book, you're not reading another book. You see? If you're experiencing this life, well, you're not experiencing another life. Technically, you are. We are the same consciousness experiencing through everybody's mind. But as this individual, the experience of this individual, this is the only one of them to have. So the same I gives itself the same information. It doesn't do it in the same way. Like right now, I can get information from two ways. I can Google it, I can remember it, or I can sit here and wait for an intuitive sense. In either experience, there's just a physical experience happening. Either it's intuition, which is in the form of a very subtle sensation, knowing, or Google, or visualization in my memory. You see? So don't get so carried away with this question about there's only one I that just finds information. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You see what I mean? I think that you're getting stuck on a question that might be redundant. That's the main thing I'd say there, Tiago. Is because you're making way too much a gap and a distinction between the small I, the big I. There's no two different I's. There's just awareness having an individual experience. Thank you for the question, brother. My current situation is chronic fatigue, financially limited, and feeling shame, fear, and guilt, self-judgment. My desired situation is able to work again, more energy, confidence, self-acceptance, so I can contribute, do more with my kids, and do things I used to enjoy. My question is, the stories, beliefs are heavily attached and triggered to the symptoms. Stories arising, there's something wrong with me, this is not allowed. I feel I'm stuck in this loop. The symptoms, stories, resistances. I'm continuously self-inquiring, being with symptoms, meditating, but the fear, shame, judgment is so strong. My question is, when observing these stories, is it beneficial to write them down? Should I inquire into the identity of a mother, expectations, beliefs, etc.? Okay, thank you for the question, Linda. This question, to me, sounds like you are stuck in a story loop. So I would recommend... I know you've done a lot of things in the past. The thing is that you're still trying to remove your suffering. But because you're experiencing a lot of intensity of it, it's obviously very uncomfortable for you. So you then need to go through a process of untangling the thoughts. You have a lot of beliefs about yourself that you are perpetuating by your own resistance to them. So you are perpetuating your beliefs by believing them to be true. So the first thing you need to see is your true nature. You need to really get convicted. You don't necessarily need to go to the smaller beliefs. I would recommend you need to really see that you are completely transcendent of any experience. Because if you don't believe you're transcendent of experience, you're just going to suffer experience all the time. So just go all the way. You've tried everything. Just give up everything that you've tried. Stop trying to go into these things. Clearly, if they were going to work, they would have worked by now. So I would just recommend going straight to your being and just getting absolutely convicted of what you essentially are. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on that specifically now, purely because you're in the community and you have direct access to me, you have direct access to the meditations. Take the path that we're taking here. Take the path we're taking here. Go directly to your source and get over and over again and just get convicted that that is what you are. Just like I mentioned to Rich, you still have some belief that happiness exists in the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. You're like a movie character in the movie, trying to change things in the movie in order to see the screen. You cannot see the screen by doing things in the movie. You're banging your head against the wall every single time you feel like you can do things in the movie in order to find happiness. Because all of this, it doesn't matter what you say, what you really want is happiness. You want to spend more time with your kids, you want to do more things, but for what cause? Happiness. It's always happiness. No one's ever done a single thing other than to find happiness or to express it. So firstly see that, then see that nothing in the world now can actually do that for you apart from going there directly. You're not going there. You're avoiding going there. This is why you feel like you're banging. I'm not saying that you feel that way, but it seems like you're banging your head against a wall. You're just over and over again doing the same thing and nothing's changing, right? So should I inquire into the identity of the mother? No, I would inquire into the identity of what you actually are. See absolutely for certain what you are. That's it. And then go there, deepen that understanding, and know there's nothing you can do in the world to make you happy. Not one thing. I hope this is helpful, Linda. I'll speak to you soon, I'm sure. Tanya, what I want to see is how not to fear weight gain. My challenge is I get annoyed when people get in my way or slow me down from doing something. You've gone from fearing weight gain to getting impatient. I'm confused where the gap is there. So what I want to see is how to not fear weight gain, but your challenge is you get annoyed when people get in your way or slow you down from doing something. But let's just pretend these are two questions. Then the first one is fearing weight gain. Fearing weight gain is because of guilt. The answer is very simple. Remove the guilt from your experience. Fearing weight gain comes from guilt. And you're probably your diet must be fueled with some type of guilt or shame. So I would bring that up first. The second thing is you get annoyed when people get in your way or slow you down from doing something. I would recommend it's okay to get annoyed if someone gets in your way or slows you down when you've got somewhere to be. But this is a control problem. This is a problem of the incessant need to control our life to the T. This is why people get impatient in these regards. So obviously, some things is necessary, right? If you've got somewhere to be and you can't be late, getting annoyed if someone's in the way is going to help you fuel being proactive to get there on time. But the sense I get is that's not necessarily the case with you. So I would recommend recognizing that this is a control issue and surrendering your control. Just surrendering your need to control, even surrender your need to be early or late, or if you feel like you're going to be late, just surrender that as well. Just give up control. That would be the direct way to go through that. Also, then it's going to tackle the first thing, which is the fearing weight gain. Surrendering your control, allowing yourself to be yourself. Give yourself that freedom. If you get frustrated, that's fine. Don't perpetuate it by seeing it as a challenge or a problem. Okay? That's what I would suggest. Thank you, Tanya. How's the time? Okay, we've been here for almost an hour. We'll do one more question. David. Nice to speak to you, David. My current situation is long COVID since 22 months. That's horrible, man. Chronic fatigue, heart problems, wouldn't be able to run even if someone tried to rob me. If I do, my heart would freak out for several days because of the running. My voice is getting a little bit tired, so I'm going to read this in my head. Okay, so David's challenge is basically to accept, he's going through a lot of kind of like psychosomatic experiences, physiological effects, pain, things like that, lack of sleep. And he's wondering, does surrendering to physical ailments apply in the same way we surrender to mental ones? Yes. As long as the pain is something that isn't provoking a need for the body. Like, for example, if you just sprained your ankle, the pain is there to keep you off the ankle, like it has an actual purpose. Most of what you just described is psychological pain, basically pain that is physical, caused of a psychological resistance that is therefore perpetuated by the psychological resistance. That's the pain that David is referring to here, as far as I'm aware. And if that is the case, I would answer yes, that is true. You would approach it in the same way. I feel the same surrendering approach is good for physical pain, i.e. feeling, embracing the pain. But in the form of seemingly endless, extensive heart palpitations, nothing seems to work. Yeah, your heart palpitations are anxiety. It's a form of anxiety and kind of panic. The heart palpitations are... You're not necessarily going to be able to solve them in the moment. They are like think of them as like an aftershock of some other previous resistance. So the more that you, in the background, deepen your sense of surrender, the less palpitations you're going to get. The palpitations, they're not something that you're probably thinking, oh, when I get a palpitation, I can't just like surrender it. That's not it. The palpitations are an expression. Think of them like an aftershock of a previous event or resistance. Palpitation. The heart is still going to beat like a diabolical Tommy Lee bats his drums. Or might this not even be the right way to look at it? Yeah. So you're right. It's not necessarily the right way because the heart palpitations are the expression of the other stuff. So gradually unravel the other things and the heart palpitations will follow. They're the symptom and they seem to not come directly after the actual anxiety, if that makes sense. So yeah, that would be my answer to you, David. I hope that's helpful. Okay, we'll do one more. My current situation, this is Andrea. Hey, Andrea. My current situation is tired of trying to get somewhere, even though I don't necessarily know what or where that is. My desired situation is freedom. My challenge is control and holding on to control. When you say all this action, I'm not too sure what you mean. And I'm not too sure what you mean, how to stop doing all the things keeping you stuck. It's too vague for me. Yeah, I'm struggling to understand. There's not enough context for me here to answer it. I'm sorry, Andrea. But just to kind of feel into the question behind the question, the reason that you're getting stuck is because you're doing things that you think will make you happy. You still have some investment in the fact they might make you happy. This sounds like a repetition, but it's so fundamental. If you think there is some way you can get happiness from control or doing these things, you're going to keep doing them. So you have to see with absolute conviction, do this thought experiment as often as you can, see that there is nothing you can actually physically do to find happiness. And once you see that fully, you will naturally surrender. I hope that was helpful, Andrea. So these are questions from my free community. I have a free and a paid community. You can join the free, test it out, see how you like it. I do calls every single week. If you'd like to join, I'd love to see you there. Awesome, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for your amazing questions. I'm going to go and eat some dinner. Maybe I'll go to the cinema. I'm not sure yet. Have an amazing day, guys. Take care. Bye.